Scott Pearson, for a lot of the Promo Cares audience, is kind of this hidden sleeping giant that nobody really knows about. So it's fun for me to have the opportunity for many in the Promo Cares community, might be the first time that they've ever even heard Scott talk. So, so welcome, Scott. It's nice to have you here for the 5 interviews segment of the Promo Cares content engine that's running like crazy. And Scott's been very instrumental in our current fundraiser, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But like, I'm going to shut up for a second and so who is Scott Pearson? Like, who is this guy, and what space in our crazy mixed up supply chain do you occupy, sir?
Wow. Well, thank you, because this is it's exciting and fun, and I'm looking forward to this. But my goodness, my upbringing in this industry really has all been on the supplier side for the most part. And it started in sales, and it was because of relationship. I had no interest in coming into this industry and selling little travel alarm clocks that had this weird oily liquid with sailboats floating in it. I couldn't get behind it, but it was the people. And I met with Marv Ruin, the founder of Sweda, at that time in the late 90s, 96, 97, and I bought into him. Mm-hmm. And what I found about this industry is that you buy into people, you build relationships, and that's how things get moved. That's how fast forward to now, how we can collaborate with competitors for great causes as well, right? It's the people. Yeah. So it came up through the sales side, managing an outside territory up in San Francisco all the way up to the Pacific Northwest. At the same time, was remaining in-house at Sweda, running inside sales as well. That evolved into national accounts. And took over that, and then into marketing, taking over marketing. And then in 2006 at Sweda, was given the opportunity to take over supply chain product development, and expose a whole different side to our industry, which is critical. It's part of the tip of the spear, right? So you've got product, sales, market, it's all the tip of the spear. And that exposed me to so many amazing people, individuals, factories, relationships, new opportunities for education and professional growth, as it relates to compliance, social accountability, all of those great things. I was given the honor to be able to be one of the founding board members of QCA in our industry, which was the Quality Certification Alliance. And that was really the motivation behind that, was to ensure that we mitigated liability and risk from a supplier base to a distributor base to an end user base to a recipient of a promotional product. Right. And that value system really hit home with me. And that really is part of my ethos and my values in terms of what I believe in as far as responsibility for responsible sourcing. In that process, 40 plus trips to Asia, and all good things there. Ended up from Sweda to Logomark as the chief revenue officer at Logomark, where I was then responsible for all sales, marketing, product development at the same time. We had some really good growth and did some really, really wonderful things. We brought a number of brands into the industry, had license deals with Callaway, for business gifts and accessories. We had a license deal that we brought to Logomark for Pelican and designed their water bottles, things like that. We just a number of things. So really had the exposure and opportunity to bring in commodity-based items, from a merchandising standpoint, good, better, best. And developing private label lines at Sweda like Basecamp, and then getting into retail brands coming into the industry and bringing Oakley in, bringing a few different really nice high-level brands in the industry. So it was great exposure. That then catapulted me into this opportunity with a great business partner of mine, Scott Pearson, where we were able to break away, and we started a premium travel brand that was based on the foundation of what B Corp stands for. And, I know we're going to get into that a little bit later, so I won't go too deep into that now, but that really, really was a driving force, was to be able to start and create something that was in complete alignment with what our core values and ethos are. It's one thing to be able to do good business, develop great product, secure a supply chain, but when you can also build a business that has other foundation elements that you know are going to benefit for the long term, that really was a massive reason. And thank God for my wife at 50 years old for forcing me to be able to step away from a very secure situation to a very entrepreneurial situation and do it. Then COVID hit. COVID was a massive impact. And my positive beliefs, my optimistic belief in life is that you're throwing curveballs and challenges. In this industry, a lot of my best relationships are based upon problems and challenges and how you solve them. And that's where the foundational relationships come from. During COVID, same thing. The travel industry shut down. And so all of our opportunities for retail placement, our D2C campaigns, everything in Facebook, everything changed, and the landscape completely changed. Thank goodness for relationships, because this industry, so many people came and said, hey, we need PPE. We need it outside of China. So we immediately pivoted and opened up relationships that we had previously had, but not done much sourcing with in Mexico. And so Mexico City became a very strong, I started traveling there quite a bit during COVID and walking the factories and understanding what the liability and risks were and how we would manage our supply chain down there. And that then exposed us to the next step, which was, hey, are there Disney FAMA approved factories down there? Can you do Coca-Cola? Can you do, we've got Heineken USA, and that exposed then all of these great new factories we were sourcing from Monterrey to Guadalajara to Mexico City. We now have an office and an entity in Mexico City. We have our office and soon to be completed entity in Ningbo, China. So the sourcing side has completely taken back over what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And along that way, like I said about B Corp, this last 5-year journey has given us the opportunity to have 3 main priorities, and that's being a revenue-driven business with profitability, our social purpose work, which has been all predominantly tied, some other peripheral things, but mostly tied to planetwater.org. We've done 5 clean water towers around the world. We had to stop during COVID for obvious reasons. And then our environmental stewardship and impact in terms of mostly in right now, most of that impact has been in our product development, mostly, selecting recycled, sustainable materials, proper factories that are in alignment with us, all certifications, making sure that we're fully transparent through the supply chain. So all good stuff. I don't know. That's kind of a run on there, Raj. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, again, we said there's a lot of people who maybe are just meeting Scott for the first time. So it's good to set the context to have people understand that you have a real depth of knowledge when it comes to product sourcing and overseas manufacturing and all of the things that really comprise our supply chain. But we as distributors oftentimes sort of just don't really pay attention to because we don't feel like we want to or have to a certain extent.
If you're working with the right suppliers, you shouldn't have to.
Right. So knowing that you have this depth of knowledge to bring to our collective efforts at Promo Cares around the path forward for things like sustainability and ethical sourcing, right? Like you have a very deep knowledge base when it comes to those topics, which we were very excited to have you join us and bring all of that knowledge and expertise. But that's us. That's me. What about you? Like, so you found your way to us. You get yourself in a room with this group of crazy mofos, and like, what was your perspective on that when you first wandered into the room with us?
Yeah, I knew many of you individually. I knew the name Promo Cares, and I knew that obviously there's a ring in terms of who's there, who's in the tribe, and there's got to be good things going and happening. Didn't know a lot about what was going on other than just the emphasis of what the intent was. Coming in and then seeing, Sleeping for Good, a lot of the campaign work, the establishment of pillars in terms of both on the supplier and on the distributor side of what we're trying to achieve. Also coming in and seeing the opportunity of what has yet to be done and achieved, I think is what really excited me, because I look around the room and everybody in their own right has strengths and is bringing something to the table. You've got PPAI board members. You've got industry recognized individuals as yourself, for a career-long achievement in these areas. And it's interesting because I've been told in my career a number of times, we would have annual strategy meetings for the upcoming year, which is forecast, budget, planning, all of that. And when I would bring up, sustainability efforts, social purpose work efforts, it was always like, wow, that's really nice, but let's just focus on top line sales and EBITDA, and that's fine, right? But it's and then you have conversations with other people, and they're kind of like, in that they see that it's recognizable to do some of these good things. Maybe there's some marketability to it, but they don't have clearly an understanding as to why, right? And that's what's so special about this room of individuals at Promo Cares, is that there is a common thread in all of us, from our values, our ethos, everything, that there's more to be done. Certainly to be the profitability drives our ability to have the independence and freedom to create impact. We as individuals now, once you're conscious that your child actually needs to have a safety car seat to drive in, then you have a car seat, right? So here we are, conscious about what can be done with social purpose and with responsible sourcing. We have a responsibility to lead and do that. And if we're conscious about it, we can't take the back seat. We have to be in the front driver's seat and driving that. And we will have successes. We will have people not listening. But I think overall, in time, the reflection back will show what this team has done. So anyways, back to like being with the team. I couldn't be more thrilled to be in a room with like-minded people that are way smarter than I am.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
When they say you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with, I'm really happy with my 5.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Really good situation to be in, for sure.
Yeah.
So, you've been in on these discussions as we consider, the way forward for Promo Cares and what we might do, and you've heard me say, like, I throw it out there sometimes that, like, why aren't we just like the QCA of B Corp certification for suppliers and distributors in our industry? So as sort of an early adopter of B Corp, like, talk to the listener from the perspective of why B Corp certification is not just interesting to our industry, but why it may be more important than a lot of people are giving that credit for.
Yeah, there's a number of really good reasons. Sticking to the top, I would say, when we started to create basically the roadmap for building a new business, a startup business, we talked about our values, ethos. What do we want it to be? What do we want it to become? And in sharing that with a few colleagues, individuals that I'm very close to, Chuck Fandos being one of them, he listened to what our values are, and he said, this really aligns with what the B Corp certification is, and I think you really need to look into that. And as we started to research, and I went on the site, started to research, went on to Amazon, I bought the B Lab handbook, and reading that, I just couldn't get it fast enough. I was so thirsty for what was in there. It really showed the roadmap, specifically as a startup, maybe a little more difficult as a legacy, long time, massive business. But as a startup, it was the roadmap. It was exactly how to build a business with everything we already believed. So in terms of why B Corp and why we should look at it, the work has been done. The heavy lifting has been done. You can simply apply what those attributes are, and you'll find the fulfillment, not just within yourself, your organization, your employees, all of that. It brings so much to the table. So we established right away, we became a pending B Corp. We started to get out and present what our brand concept was and what we were doing. Some really good listeners, such as, McCabe Promotions, Jamie McCabe up in Canada. He sat in on one of our meetings, and at the end of the meeting, he said, we're going to become a B Corp. And he actually accomplished his B Corp certification quicker than the 12-month requirement we were under pending. So he was also an immediate early adopter. It's word of mouth. It's connecting people to what their value systems already are. And they're probably already doing a lot of good work. This organizes it, it certifies it, and it makes it marketable in a positive way, in a real way. Not in a, hey, we've got some eco-friendly pens or something, which is fine, but this is next level stuff that, again, consciousness and taking it to that next level. I think with B Corp, what it can do in our industry, we're seeing more and more suppliers and distributors. I so applaud these massive suppliers that I believe, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe Gemline, I believe PCNA, I think there's some really good work being done at a high level that is complex in a big organization to
Sure.
alter and change your operational agreements, to get this disseminated through all of your platforms and layers of organizations. So really, really amazing what's going on. And again, back to the triple bottom line of like profit, social purpose, and environmental stewardship. And everybody has a little bit different in terms of what social purpose means to them and what environmental stewardship means to them, but it's all good stuff. It's something that's more than just making a buck, and I think in this industry, the more of that we're doing, the less we're going to be criticized for what we're manufacturing, impacts in communities around the world, product that may end up in areas that are not great. Those are realities, and we have to think about that, talk about that, because overall the impact of advertising promotional items is incredibly positive. But we have to take responsibility as to how we manufacture it, how we supply it, how we distribute it, and be thoughtful about that. So that's where B Corp is a great, wonderful leading force.
So many times when we encounter people who are interested in the Promo Cares movement, the conversation focuses on like, what could I do? What could I do? Right. And what I love about B Corp is, and this was a little bit of the conversation that I had with Denise, it's like, this is such a big tent when it comes to what you might do, that it can be somewhat paralyzing because the preponderance of choice is so great. I don't know how to get myself going.
Yeah.
What you're literally saying is like, if you want a blueprint, there's a blueprint.
There's a blueprint.
And what we're trying to do as a group, if you don't want to read the blueprint in its entirety, then you can study those of us who are using the blueprint to try to make a decision about how you would want to interpret that for yourself. Right. And I laugh a lot about this idea of like people lying in wait to call you out for being insincere about what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you're sincere, then you are impervious to being called out because you've picked the thing that is core to who you are, and you're not worried about the inspection that you might get from outside. You're just doing your thing.
Correct.
And when you get in a community of other people who are doing similar work, it gives you a chance to like admire what all of these other like artists are doing with their own canvases.
Exactly.
As you consider your own vision in your mind of what you want to paint. And, to me, like the environment is welcoming. The community is full of super smart, super passionate people. And if you find yourself in the presence of this community of people and it speaks to you, you're never going to leave. You're never going to leave. And whether that's Promo Cares or B Corp or your regional trade association or Promo Kitchen, whatever it is, it's trying to find your tribe. And to kind of tie this back to what we were saying, like you'll get better, period. If you surround yourself with talented, like-minded people who have the same beliefs that you have, period. Like
absolutely. And it equates to, think about it this way. How do your children view what you're doing? And you can be doing good things and it's not quite as apparent, but this really is setting great examples. It's leading by example. And you're 100% correct. When you're surrounding yourself with this, it only gets stronger. And anybody who has questions, maybe doesn't get it, it's a welcoming environment to come in, feel safe and understand, learn. And there's no like, oh, you have to achieve this much to be in this club. It's not that at all. It's simply like, you just made a step forward. That's brilliant. Let's just talk and hang and let's keep pushing. And that's where it goes. One of the things I wanted to mention also was, in the beginning, I was, so enthralled with B Corp and really wanted to shout it. And we were a pending B Corp for 12 months as a requirement as a startup. I bought 25 B Corp handbooks. So when I went to China, went to Vietnam, to my factories, when I went to my design agency in Denver, Colorado, when I worked with our digital ad, I handed out a B Corp handbook to everybody that we were doing business with. And I said, just read it. I just want you to know who we are and where we're coming from. You know me and our past, but here's who we are. And I started distributing that, right? Even now, the networking of individuals, like Leader Promos, Stephanie came and said, hey, we want to do this, want to talk. And I said, you know what, as a distributor, I'm going to connect you to Jamie McCabe, right? And so they start talking and they're helping. And now they've got a relationship brewing. Jamie McCabe talked to Denise. Denise, inspired Jamie, right? So there's just it's a really, really good place to see the industry going that direction. It's inspiring. And you need that because, again, we're selling those little travel alarms of oily water, right? So we've got to be inspired to do what we do.
All right. So that sort of brings me to what I wanted to ask you, right? So we'll talk about our fundraising efforts here in a minute. And, Promo Cares has become quite the prolific group of fundraisers in our own right. But independent of the causes that we are passionate about, that we raise money for, and knowing that, like, I've already said what I think we should do as far as like becoming the B Corp training ground.
Yeah.
What Scott, where do you see us going? Like what if you're trying to predict?
Yeah, I think a couple levels that I'll just stick to without getting too fragmented. So I think from when we talk about education, it's not like we have a certifiable curriculum that we're out, trying to educate people on. I think it's really about being a voice, opportunities like this, different platforms to be able to speak to it so people can hear, question and absorb and then maybe come. So I think that there's that progression of continuing to promote what this is about. Number two is I think that the For Good campaigns are just absolutely brilliant. Watching the team of individuals on our side work and operate. I wasn't here for Sleep In for Good. I came in right at the tail end. I'm like, wow, look at the whole effort that went into this. Then all of a sudden, coming into the new year, Ukraine's invaded, and I see our team jump into action, and really saw for the first time, aside from my experience at QCA, where there was such a competitive collaboration to create systems for standard operating procedures, QA manuals, and a whole deck for certified. That was pretty amazing. This is the next step of what I've seen from that. And that was this group of individuals reaching out, networking to all their individual relationships, pulling people together for Ukraine, and how fast to be very honest, I was so on the sideline watching this because the fury and pace that Meg, Mandy, that everybody worked and operated in was phenomenal to see happen. So it really inspired me to see the potential of what could be done with this group, right?
Yep.
And then we get into Water for Good, which we'll talk about. And now it kind of is evolving where, there was a massive impact and need with Ukraine. And I think that will always be there as things come up around the world. But I think the biggest opportunity for us is bringing attention to areas of need that impact this industry as well. And I think that's where, when we talk about clean water for communities and disadvantaged, areas around the world, but they're producing for us to have livelihood, to send our kids to college, right? And all these great things. I think there's a responsibility for us to do good back through that process and in those channels. What's to come after Water for Good, I'm excited to see. And I think it can help to bring relevance to the industry as far as how we can do more, rather than, I think all this, to your point earlier, like how do you focus? You have to be focused. And I think, we could go do things for education, for schools, for children, and there's so many great causes. We need to be focused. And I think our biggest opportunity at Promo Cares going forward is going to be choosing whether it's social purpose or environmental elements that are directly negative cause impacts from our industry that we can better bring attention to and improve. So that's kind of where I see it going, just keeping it kind of narrow.
Yeah. We aren't afraid to tackle the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And hard stuff suggests that there's probably more big, tough stuff for us to try to grapple with. And seeing the Water for Good campaign as kind of a way for us to test our ability to continue to grapple with the big challenges that are facing what we as a marketplace create on the
Yep.
planet, right? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
that's the truth of the matter. We sell things that are bad for the planet, so we should try to mitigate some of the impact that we make on what we do, right? And unlike in the past, when maybe we would just turn a little bit of a blind eye, actually, hell, a lot of a blind eye to the fact that that's a thing, we as a community have said maybe we can lead the charge
Yes.
on not turning the blind eye
Yes.
and making an effort towards not just raising money, but I would tell you, if you look at some of the other campaigns that we've run, the visibility of the impact that we've made has been pervasive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at the expo show floor
Yeah.
in January for
Yeah.
an example of how the marketplace has responded to the impetus that we've given it. Whether we were responsible for it or not is irrelevant, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's the marketplace has finally gotten their brain around the fact that we can get ahead of this
Yes.
if we just keep focused on it, right? All right. So let's talk a little bit about Water for Good, Scott, because here's the thing. The thing that we want everyone to recognize and appreciate, because there's more opportunity for passionate people to get involved with the Promo Cares board.
Mm-hmm.
And our fundraising efforts largely have been spurred by relationships a member of the board already had
Correct.
with a nonprofit that's cause was important enough for us to want to support. You, with the work that you've done with Planet Water, had this opportunity to bring this to us with a relationship already in place. So knowing that, I'm opening the floor up. Scott, talk about Water for Good. You've had as much to do with this as anyone, and it's really fun to give you a chance to talk to other people about it.
Yeah. Man, Water for Good has been just an amazing kind of cap, or it's not a cap, but just kind of a next level extension of our relationship and understanding and learning about the need for clean water. And, this goes back to, kind of the, with Exact and with our 6 a.m. business, the towers that we have built in the 5 towers, one in Puerto Rico, one in Lombok, Indonesia after an earthquake there, one at a girls' school in India, in Cambodia on World Water Day, which we did a beautiful documentary about. And then finally, we got to do a tower in Vietnam near our backpack factory out of Ho Chi Minh City. And that's where what was important to us was being able to put resources back into communities that were drawing resources out of. And that was our first one to be able to do it right there. And so right now, the sustainability of these towers is, we did our last tower before COVID. So they've been active since the first one was 2018. We have a calculator that constantly is exponentially multiplying the liters of clean water daily that it's producing. And we're over 30 million liters of clean water in these communities. Great. It's mind blowing in terms of like how that work and that commitment continues to bring. So now, as we do that, we come forward to the Water for Good campaign here. This was like, my gosh, when we started to talk about it on one of our board calls, and we as a collective group were like, wow, this could really be good. Let's go. And then we start to stretch out to some of our community. I mean, my gosh, I talked to, Chris Robinson at Promo Shop, I probably called him like the hour after our board call. I'm like, hey, I'm like, you're my guy. Like you're doing so many good things. What do you think about this? He's all, oh, I'm going to execute it next month. So he was almost like 9 months ahead of us from when we launched our campaign, but they were already raising money. And so I think the Water for Good, what this is going to do for us is really bring and expose, I think, that path that we want to be on. And that is this industry doing good for disadvantaged schools and communities and individuals where we're drawing resources out of. So now that we're focusing on this campaign down in Mexico, which there's so many of us down there that are manufacturing, sourcing product, and to be able to bring this to those communities is going to be phenomenal. And the suppliers and distributors that have stepped up, the large amounts of donations we've already received. I know we're going to be publicating, kind of where we're at mid-level, because I think we're midway through our campaign. Mm-hmm. We already have overachieved what our goals were. And in terms of donations and knowing what towers are going to be going down there. The ability for us, for a very, very, very fortunate select group to go down and volunteer and help do these, build these towers, and see the teamwork and effort that goes into it, the incredible organization of Planet Water, then to be able to go into the schoolrooms and with the children and educate on why health and hygiene is so important with clean water, why washing your hands is so important, all of these things, it's life changing. And you want your children, you want everybody to be able to experience and understand this, because it lightens the load in life, and it makes things more palatable in terms of what's really important. And then it's the benefits that we will only maybe see the numbers of how many liters, but we don't know the true like individual and family impacts that this is going to bring. Those are the things that we can do all at the same time while driving and running a profitable business.
Right.
So again, it's that consciousness that we have, that we owe it to the industry, to the people that are helping us build our businesses, and to do this. So I'm thrilled and excited to see the success as a group that we're having as an impact on this industry, and what we're going to bring at the end of fall to the country of Mexico and those needed areas. So,
and it's a bit of an odd duck of a fundraiser, because a lot of the contributions will happen at the end of the campaign.
yeah, exactly.
So we can't properly communicate how much money we've raised in the interim, because we really won't know until the end. So 1, 2, 10 towers, we don't know how many we're going to build.
Yeah.
We know we're going to build one for sure, because we've already got that much money in place.
Yeah.
But the idea of, and for anyone, just for a moment, close your eyes and think about a transformative moment in your life.
Yeah.
Something that happened that changed the course of the direction of the entirety of your life. We are about to do that for hundreds of people around the globe.
Yeah.
And to know that we have the opportunity at our fingertips to have that kind of power available to us, and that we have this unique opportunity to invite our clients into this fundraiser by virtue of the catalog that we've created. This really is the epitome of the way that the power of promo is supposed to actually work. So Scott, man, for me, for you, thank you for being in a position to not only have the knowledge that you had to give us this opportunity, but to be willing to sort of roll up your sleeves and get in and say, no, we're going to make this be a thing. So we have no idea how much it's going to be. We have no idea how many barks the dog's going to have. All we know is that we have started something amazing in the world, and we want everyone to recognize and appreciate that, like, we're just suppliers and distributors like the rest of you. We're small business people for the most part. So there's really nothing stopping any of you from being involved if you want to. So
it's so true. And just listening to you kind of run through that, Roger, is I'm thinking about how these suppliers, distributors, and everybody involved in the campaigns that they're individually or collectively running. And then as we continue to bring attention, and we're sharing education impact studies throughout the summer and into fall, and recognize how can this industry and the companies, the people in it, not feel so strongly about what we as an industry have done.
Yeah.
As an industry, we've collectively come together and do this. We've unified an effort that has brought us all together to do this. And if we can do this time and time again, the strength of this industry and what we're capable of, thinking about like what, Bellantone and before him and others have done in terms of going to Washington and campaigning for this industry and other things, like there's so much good strength here. And going back to the beginning, thank you for welcoming me into Promo Cares and just being a part of this band of do-gooders and just badass people and fun-loving. And this is great, man. It just, it makes life better, Roger. It really does.
It makes life better. So we're going to leave that right at that, and we'll call it a day. And we'll say thanks to everybody for listening in, and tune in to the next 5 questions interview with another member of the Promo Cares board as we continue to try to just convince you all to get involved, jump in, and be a part of it, what we've got going on. Scott, man, thanks again.
Thank you, Raj. Appreciate you.